Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to tonight. So we're from GameAware. This is Yome at the bottom of your screen there. My name is Andrew, and you all know Tony. I thought I'd maybe just introduce myself very briefly before we get started with a little bit of content, and then we want to be able to take your questions. Yome is going to handle the questions for us tonight, and help us filter through them, and then we'll do our best to get through them with you. So essentially, again, my name is Andrew. I've been a teacher for about 20 years for health and well-being. And we started GameAware maybe 10 years ago to be on a bit of a mission to bridge that gap between parents and gamers and professionals, because we have that unique perspective of being gamers ourselves. And so the mission tonight is to try and give you as much insight as we possibly can to answer a few questions so you can understand, what makes a gamer tick, and in this case, with a special lens through what makes a neurodivergent gamer tick. Want to introduce yourself, Tony?
Yeah, Tony Attwood, and I've been exploring autism for well over 50 years. And of course, when I began, computer games, no, the only games you had was chess or a pack of cards. Now I am astounded by the depth and quality in gaming. It's a new universe. I'm absolutely amazed. But I never had the temptations when I was younger that kids have today.
All right. So we're going to start off by going through just a little bit of motivation. And this is something that we call the carrot model. And so essentially, I'm going to go through what each letter of the carrot model means, and then Tony's going to give you his take on how that sort of applies through his lens. And then we're going to turn to the Q&A section where you'll be able to answer or to ask questions. Believe, yep, there's already. So the questions are you'll be able to pop in questions at any time, and we'll keep those there. And we've already got one. Fantastic. All right. So feel free to pop open the Q&A and answer to ask your questions. We might even throw in a poll at the end of it as well. So in terms of the carrot model, what we're trying to do here is simplify a complex set of motivations. And the beginnings of the carrot model come from self-determination theory. This is a well-researched and well-known theory of intrinsic motivation. And we like to say that it's about filling these three intrinsic buckets, and understanding what you're motivated to do, and what purpose gaming has for you has a lot to do with understanding these. So I'm going to start with C, which is for competence. And essentially, competence is that need for mastery and progression. It's really just this need to be good at something. And so, in the context of gaming, there's all sorts of games that are going to lean into skill building. It might also lead into progression and mastery. So it might just be there are certainly some gamers of the parents here in the audience who are 100%ers, and they won't be satisfied until they find every single thing that to unlock in a particular game. And in real life, we're going to find things that help build skills as well. So, the real life could be sports, it could be any of the arts when you're trying to master something like a skill like singing or anything like that. It just could be academics. So in terms of competence, Tony, what do you think?
Well, yeah, it gives a thrill of achievement. The social world is so complicated, and there are social rules, and people keep breaking the social rules and getting away with it. But gaming has clear rules. You can go, I know the good guys, the bad guys, the expectations, etc. So there's a sense of satisfaction. There's also enormous practice. There's high degree of motivation, and at last you're feeling I'm actually good at something which is valued by my peer group. There's also instant recognition. You don't have to wait till the teacher marks what you're doing. It comes back straight away. It's sort of, I've done it. It's whatever it is you've achieved, etc. And so that immediate feedback makes you feel, I'm good at this. And it's a wonderful feeling that at last in your life, you're competent at something.
Fantastic. All right, so that takes care of one of the three, primary motivators of self-determination theory. Let's have a look at A for autonomy now. So this is the need for control over your choices. You think of words like agency or volition. Um, And I think that if someone is trying to become creative, if they're trying to explore things, then autonomy is one of those drivers that people will lean into. And so when it comes to gaming, certain games are going to lean into this kind of motivator even more. So a lot of people here have probably been through some Minecraft phase or they're going through it right now. And Minecraft in its purest form is a type of game where you can just build and create and do all the things that you want. So it does lean heavily into autonomy. Um, and so in real life, you can imagine all sorts of creative endeavors as well, but it's also about decision making. There's some games that allow you to choose sort of your own adventure. I don't know if you grew up with the same books that I did, where you could actually have different endings based on the pages that you turn to. So this is something that somebody who's driven by autonomy will like in games, the decision making to have potentially even alternate endings in the game. And what do you think, Tony? How does this apply?
Okay, there's a new dimension of autism we're starting to identify called pathological demand avoidance. And when it comes to gaming, it's basically, I haven't got a boss. Nobody is the boss of me. There's no teacher to tell me what to do. There's no group of peers to tell me. There's no parents to tell me what to do. I am master of my own destiny. I make my decisions. I go where I want to go. And that again is intoxicating for the individual, that basically you're not told what to do.
Yep, we've definitely come across that in our practice. And so the final letter in self-determination theory, the R, is for relatedness. And really relatedness, you think of social connection, you think of your peer groups and everything like that. It's a little bit more than that, though. It's about mattering to other people, being part of something bigger than yourself. So it's not just about friends, it's about community. When it comes to gaming, you might think of multiplayer games where you're cooperative together, or you might be competing. So you might be against other people and still be hitting a relatedness need to some degree. And if you think of games that, are great for this type of thing, you might think of games like Mario Wonder, which is a game where you might have four actual characters from the Mario world coming along and playing together and working together to solve puzzles. And even Roblox. Roblox, I'm sure might be a trigger word for some people here, and that's okay. We'll talk about that a bit more later. But if you're really hitting your relatedness needs in real life, it's kind of just hanging out and doing things together, either as a family or in a friend group. And sometimes we find these things can be difficult to access. What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, I think for autism, one of the problems is you have a feeling that other people think you're not one of us. But now, when you're gaming, they welcome you. And so, for the first time, people are delighted that you're online, and they go, "Ah, we're glad you're there. You're the expert at this." And so, to have that genuine welcome, "So glad you're here," is again very intoxicating for an autistic individual who's got something that other people value. But it's also a way of meeting people without having to read facial expressions, body language, all the social chit chat, all the superficial socializing. You just get on with the game. That's it. You have an objective to go to. But you can also, in relatedness, realize that gaming is the currency of friendship. It's what others are talking about. And if you've played that game and you know about it in the currency of friendship, you're rich. So there are many aspects of relatedness.
Yeah, because it can be one of those special interests for so many of us, then it's like you can vibe your tribe, is another way of putting it, right?
Mm.
Okay. So that's the first three letters of the carrot model. And when we start talking about the other two letters, which are E for escape and D for design, now we're talking about things that might probably lead into potentially more problematic reasons to be playing. And so if somebody's playing to escape, the real question we're asking is like, what are they actually struggling with? And if you think back to CA&R, maybe they're just struggling to feel competence, autonomy, and relatedness in real life. And so they're seeking the path of least resistance by doing it virtually online. It could be that they're struggling with stress or struggles with mental health, and they could just be struggling to fit in. But essentially, what the main message that we understand and we pass on is that using gaming as a coping tool is not a great idea. Maybe short term. If we're talking about using it as a way to escape for a month or something like that, probably not the end of the world. But if it's your only way that you're coping and it's for long term, then you're going to end up having two problems on your hands. What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, I think escape is incredibly powerful because you find that the social world, especially with your peer group as a teenager and young adult, have huge demands and expectations which are difficult for you to meet. And so you want to go somewhere where again you're successful and so on. But I think it's more than just escape. It's also blocking. It's a thought blocker for anxiety. It blocks your depression or agitation. You escape. You escape into an alternative world. And in autism, that's one of the things. If the world doesn't value you, you try and find a world where you are valued. And in gaming, you can be a superhero. You're a bit like, if you excuse my age, Clark Kent, the ordinary, innocuous guy, but secretly you're Superman. And in the game, you are the exceptional, wise leader. And that, again, is very valuable.
Okay, so that brings us to the final letter in the CARED model, which is D for design or even dopamine, because we'll talk about it sort of in the same way. So we're looking at the actual mechanics in the game design. And then we can ask the question, are you playing the game or is the game playing you? And again, speaking of trigger words, there's plenty of games out there that really lean into these compulsion mechanics, but by far the one platform of games that is the most popular is definitely going to be Roblox. Accessibility, it's free until you start getting your son or daughter sort of asking you for money to buy things in the game. There's all sorts of issues that we find in Roblox. But what's common in a lot of those games and many other games as well is that these games are sort of sit on a spectrum of game design between engaging and compulsive. So some games will lean into CA and R. So playing, if you're playing Mario Kart with your family on the couch, it might be a little competitive, but you're connecting with your family. You're making memories, you're having a good time. There's some real value there. And so engagement motivators are sort of more intrinsic. But when you're chasing a reward, or if you're chasing, admiration of your friends for the value of the vegetables in your garden, in Grow a Garden, for example, those are extrinsic things that we might be chasing. And so I have to ask, you know, are we talking about time or money? And by this I mean, is the game making our young people feel disadvantaged if they're not spending enough time in the game? So they might have to grind to play a lot to be able to earn things or get lucky enough, do admin abuse, which is something that's become even today. I had two families talk to me about Grow a Garden and steal a brain rot and wanted to wake up really early to do an admin abuse. Don't know if anybody's in there. Hands up if you are. That'd be fun. So in this, yep. So are we feeling disadvantaged by spending lots of time by not spending enough time in the game? Or do you feel disadvantaged if you're not spending enough money in the game? So that's like skipping the queue instead of spending a lot of time. Some people will spend their money. And so again, it's chasing an extrinsic reward. So in Roblox and other types of games, it's basically where you need to level up to get strong or just buy your way there. What do you think? Do you think it's something unique though? Do you think that there's a little bit like another level to it, Tony, for
Okay, I think there are other dimensions. Obviously, there's the aesthetics, there's the quality of the game, the imagination. It's another world, and you're good at it, and so on. But I think there's another dimension. It is not necessarily altruistic. The problem is many of the games are designed by psychologists and psychologists who are knowledgeable in the area of the gambling and addiction industry. And so they have the almost there, the loot boxes. And what they've designed is a game which is very enjoyable. But the problem is it's become, shall we say, an immediate response. It's a positive one. There are many ways that it's designed very subtly, but very effectively to be addictive. And that's where I am concerned about the ethics of some of the games designers.
it's very, very true. What we find is that the games that lean into those compulsion mechanics and extrinsic motivators instead of intrinsic, they're usually toying around with ethical lines, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. So why don't we go to some questions? Um, so this would be a good time now. We've got a few in the Q&A box right now, but now's a good time if anybody has any questions, maybe based on something that we've just spoken about or something that's been concerning you. While you start doing that, what I'm going to do is launch this little poll if I can find it. Here we go, poll. Just a real basic poll out of the that sort of talks about the cared model that we just went through. Just a question for each letter. That might help you come up with some questions as well. And then we'll do our best.
Wow, Andrew, that's a very good quiz. I'm
You
glad
like
you're
that one?
getting the data on that. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I went and sort of had to redo my quiz today. I really wanted it to be succinct and right around what we were talking about.
Mm. What it means is that in many ways, there's not one simple explanation of why somebody's so involved with gaming, because it's appreciated on many different levels.
Yeah, that's definitely our experience as well. It's one of the reasons why we benefit so much from being gamers ourselves when we're connecting with other gamers is that we can ask all the right questions, might be playing the actual same games. It means that it's like you said, they feel recognized, they feel valued because no one's just immediately telling them that what they're doing is a waste of time. But then it also opens the door to tell us if something is a bit of a waste of time or they're engaging in something that might be less healthy than other game choices, for example, then they'll listen, which is it's a great tool.
Yeah, I think we can also follow the strategies that have been developed over decades for addiction, all its other forms, is the value of those who have been there, that have the authenticity and the credibility. Otherwise, there's always the comment, well, you've never been addicted to games, you wouldn't know what you're talking about. And it's hard to answer that. But you've got somebody who has been down the same path further, then whatever they recommend, people will actually attend to that because of the authenticity.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Man, we're still getting a lot of answers here. We might wait just a bit longer for that poll. We got 75% of you guys have done it, but while that's happening, we've got a few questions that have popped up. That's great. Um, how should we sort through these? What do you think, Yome? Can you help us sort through it? Maybe pick the ones that you think.
I think if we
Definitely.
have a sort of
Sorry.
a rule, it's a question that may have the maximum relevance to the people tuned in, rather than a
Yes.
deeply personal
Mm,
situation.
I think there's
definitely.
some very interesting questions in here. One in particular sent in anonymously, which I think is quite on topic, which is how do you deal with the emotional destruction when someone that is gaming can't seem to enjoy playing because they die or they have their things stolen or they can't get past a level. There's that initial frustration that is somewhat built into the game. And as a reaction, they are beginning to get emotional about that. They're getting a bit angry. Maybe they're crying. There's some dysregulation happening. But at the end of it all, at the end of all of this, it's still a conversation of, oh no, I really love that game. That actually is really enjoyable. I would definitely play more of that.
Okay, it's a good question. I'm answering it from the point of view of autism, but a characteristic of autism is a difficulty perceiving and regulating your own emotions. And uh, minor irritation can cause quite an explosive reaction. And the person may have great difficulty in self-soothing, calming, distracting, a whole range of things. So it's not just in the game, probably in their everyday life. If something goes wrong, there's not what I expected in my lunchbox today, if it's a kid, then their reaction can appear to be excessive because there's a very quick, it's a bit like a volume control of emotions. A non-autistic person, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Often in autism, 1, 2, 9, 10. And anything 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 comes out as 9 or 10. Now, the games are going to have frustration, all sorts of issues associated with it. But what you're describing here is how does the person cope with frustration and irritation, which is a life problem, not necessarily strictly a gaming problem.
And I can give you another perspective as well, just in general, because if you think back to the beginning of the Cared model, when we're talking about competence, when we see frustration that might even turn into that sort of emotional outburst might even turn into rage and actually breaking things. That sort of frustration is known to come from an expectation for competence, but then not meeting that expectation. So if you think of, a famous, I don't know, John McEnroe, the man might have got a double fault or didn't get a call to go his way. He's busted a whole bunch of rackets and yelled at a whole bunch of umpires. And so that's his emotional sort of outburst when he expected to feel competent but didn't at a professional sports level. But it's the same kind of thing that we see very common with gaming, where you have a lot of opportunities to do that. So frustration and anger come from that expectation for being good at something, but then not meeting that expectation. All right.
Wonderful.
What else should we do next?
I can definitely go with more questions. There's plenty here to pick from.
Oh,
Okay,
sure.
Joe, go ahead.
Sure.
Your choice. You choose.
Okay.
You're the
So I
curator.
think I'm just going to pick one at random, to be fair. I think a particularly difficult question, and a question that, especially when I'm talking with parents all the time, that I get is around how can I begin if I have a kid who's not really recognizing that gaming can be quite addictive at times. And no, I'm not addicted. It's not a problem. How do I even begin to have a discussion there around, well, I think there might be some things that I'm concerned about.
Okay, I think, again, if I approach it on autism, they need to see the data. Otherwise, it's just an opinion and it's your belief, and no, it's contrary to my belief, and I don't think it's a problem, and I'd like more time. My problem is not gaming. My problem is I want more time gaming. So I would ask parents to objectively find the duration of gaming each day over a considerable period of time and present the evidence that, in fact, this is what you're doing. Now, the problem is not necessarily what you're doing, it's what you're missing out on of developing friendships in real life, fresh air, exercise, all those sorts of things, and nutrition. And so this is why, for parents, I think you need to say, we're not being mean, we're not punishing you, we're actually love you, we're concerned about you, but we're concerned that your pallor is going grey because you're hardly ever outdoors, you're becoming somewhat obese and lethargic. All those sorts of things are of concern. It's not good posture, it's not good for your heart, etc. It also gives you very powerful emotions, and after you've been gaming, emotionally, you are absolutely exhausted. And when you're exhausted, when you switch the game off, it's difficult for you to cope with other situations. So it's going through data. What are the advantages of reducing it? And it's very important not to say we're going to get rid of it, because then how dare you? No way. It's going to say we need to be reasonable here. What would be a reasonable amount of time? Oh yeah, 40 hours a week. Well, that may be a bit reasonable for you, but not really. World Health Organization recommends 20 hours a week, etc. So it's trying to be focusing on the advantages to that individual in health, that's physical and mental health, by perhaps reducing the amount of gaming. And when you suggest it, it may be only 15 minutes a week, but gradually increasing that time.
It's funny, I would say that one of our greatest assets is, again, as we mentioned before, this authenticity, right? And so at risk of oversimplifying something that is definitely not that simple, we're trying to explain when we get a chance, when we get into that first session and we build rapport, and in that journey that we take together, we're trying to explain to them why they want to play less, not why all the adults in their life, not why parents, not why anybody else wants them to play less. They know that, they've heard it, And that's important. We'll circle back around to that later. But why do they want to play less? And part of the reason is, reconnecting and you can meet your needs better in real life. And that's true, but that's not the most tantalizing thing right away. You got to see them maybe relate to something that they're experiencing that they may not like. So, for example, when we start talking about what happens when you are absolutely overindulging in gaming, and which is as people have heard the term dopamine quite often, they might be experiencing dopamine burnout, and so that means that if they already um, sometimes we're talking with neurodivergent folks, we're already have a lower baseline of dopamine, and then you're seeking that lowest hanging fruit, and then gaming can potentially make it even more difficult to feel that motivation, that pleasure, that reward. Yet you'll still be struggling for it, like you'll still be going for it because it's harder to feel, so you have to work harder for it, and that spends more time. And so being able to explain, that feeling that you're really after, that feeling of fulfillment, which you might be trying to find in game, you're not really going to find it there. Will it top up that bucket? Absolutely. But will it be capable of filling that bucket to the top on its own? Not typically, no. And so we try to help find that balance where it's not gaming or something else in real life, it's gaming and we can start that conversation and continue it. And once we can help them see why they don't want to play too much, we start to make um, progress.
Now, Andrew, you made a very good comment in previous conversations we've had. That is your competence, your skill is a curve in a way. That as you play for the first hour, it's increasing, but you reach, shall we say, the peak. And then if you keep gaming, your performance actually goes down. And that makes you more and more frustrated. That was meant. Please explain more.
Sure. Look, I've seen this in myself, but I also see it in the professional esports players that I've had the privilege of doing performance coaching for. So it's not strategies and skills. I got other coaches for that. It's for mental performance. And one of the first things I have to do is make sure that they're not overplaying. And, they're going to always be fighting an uphill battle there, but I've gotten very good results out of players who actually start to engage and balance their lives and have very dedicated training times and then not just overindulging for no reason. And it's just because you can't focus forever. Like there is a finite level of peak focus that you're going to be able to have in one sitting or one day or whatever. And so and the related to what we were talking about previously, if someone's not able to feel competent in their game, they're going to get frustrated. Well, if you're not focusing well, then you're not going to feel competent. Now, to be fair, a lot of gaming experiences lean into competence, but not every gaming experience, right? Some gaming experiences are just very chilled out. It's just a way to go and explore things, or it's more relaxing. But I'd say that competence is certainly one of the most popular drivers. So, yep, if you can't focus in game, you're not going to be able to perform, and so it really comes down to there's a common thread between, what makes an esports professional play their best and just what is balance for a lot of people, I find. All right, what else have we got
Absolutely.
today?
There are plenty more. We can keep
So many
going.
more.
Um,
We're
I'm
definitely
trying to
going over
type
time.
to give some answers in, just I suppose for context. I'm trying to type and answer as many as I can, but for everyone I answer, two more pop up. So I will try to get to everybody. Um, I suppose an interesting one that might be a bit more Andrew focused, and then I have one that might be a bit more Tony focused to play a bit of ball. Um, Andrew, so the question was about Discord and how it ties in with gaming. So why does Discord exist was the first part of the question. And does it make gaming better in terms of that relatedness or worse, in terms of, potentially cyberbullying, the safety aspect, and then just wanting to spend a lot of time, I suppose, in and on Discord.
That's a loaded question, guys. All right, so look,
Yes.
I'm happy to
there,
help answer as well, Andrew.
that
Yeah, I'm
yeah, that's
happy
cool.
for
That's
you to
cool.
answer there, Andrew.
I'll start with some experience with the high school esports space. So for a year, I was able to run one of the high school esports leagues. So that's schools competing against other schools in certain video game titles. Typically game titles that don't have a ton of these compulsion mechanics, by the way. They actually offer this opportunity to build communication skills and teamwork and all this kind of stuff. Okay. And the Education Queensland just won't let any schools use Discord. So is there a risk? Yes, there's a risk to using Discord. So it's just because um, it's a very powerful tool. The reason why gamers will seek Discord out is because they know that other gamers are using it. It's the preferred choice. The most common use of it is if somebody's not like um, using every little aspect of Discord, is to just link on Discord with a friend. It might be a private call, it might be a group channel. We use Discord when we're doing our mentoring with our young people because we have a server and it's moderated and there's a community and it's got certain roles and permissions and it works. But one of the reasons, one simple reason, is that the audio quality is quite good. So it's as good or better than a phone call. I'd say better than a phone call these days. And much better than whatever is available as the in-game chatting tools that Roblox would have or Call of Duty or whatever. So everyone will choose Discord first, typically, because it's such a powerful tool. What would be good to explore? I don't have a link for you right now. I'm not sure if Yome will have any time, but there's a Discord sort of safety page with a parent guide and all sorts of stuff. They know they're trying to do their best to pass on this information to parents. It's a page that's well worth looking into, but it's like anything else. It's when we try to completely take something away from kids, and everyone's a bit different, everyone's family situation is different. I respect that. But if you're trying to take something completely away, you're not really growing the self-regulation muscle. If there's a way to try and teach responsible use, then it means that when one day they're independent and on their own, they're not just going to go and do all the things that they weren't able to do before. So it's good to try and teach those skills. Again, it's unique to everybody's situation, I'm sure, but it is extremely common for gamers to use Discord for sort of all those reasons. I hope I even scratched the surface of that question. Do you have anything to add for that, Yoma?
I think that's pretty good. So I think the only thing I would really add is that as a more direct answer to exactly what you asked, in terms of relatedness, definitely. I mean, if we look at Discord as a social platform for gamers, by gamers, what we also see is inside of Discord some really niche communities popping up. And when you can filter through and find that exact one thing that you're looking for with the people that understand the one game you're playing or the interest that you have, that becomes a very, very powerful tool, especially where potentially in real life, I know growing up really rurally, the closest guy to me was the farmer 4 kilometers away, and he doesn't know anything about the games I want to play. And so when we are able to connect like that and be so specific and just tailor, I'm only going to engage this much, that's what I feel comfortable with, that is where I think it becomes um, a very powerful tool for relatedness, but potentially also an issue when we look at developing social skills or developing functional capacity in real life as well. So I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Discord can be fantastic, but it's probably best that it's paired with a lot of oversight and just making sure with how we're interacting with it.
It's a bit like gaming itself. Can be fantastic, can be a concern. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's great
Definitely.
until it's not. Um, I know you probably have a few lined up, but I just saw one. Oh no, I've lost it. I've completely scrolled and lost it. Go for it. Find another one. I'll keep
Sure.
looking.
Okay. There was one earlier that was for Tony. I apologize if this is a loaded one. What advice would you give on time spent on gaming for autistic teens who use it as a bit of a regulation tool, especially at the end of a day, which is filled with a lot of masking around potentially around school or places like that? How much is too much if they also need time for that sort of special interest relaxation time as well?
It's a very difficult question to answer because it's going to vary from day to day according to the circumstances. The value of the game, it's an alternative world you can be good at, you can be success. It's a wonderful contrast to the issues that you faced at school. It can be an energizer. You're exhausted from school, but the gaming energizes you. It's exciting and so on. The trouble is that when you're involved in the game, you're often unaware of time. Time disappears. And it's often parents who are aware of the duration of the game. So I think it's really trying to make a contract with the teenager of what is reasonable from both parties. Now, on some days, the amount of time gaming may need to be more because of the circumstances. I think it's difficult to say it can only be 30 minutes, full stop. I think there may be a variability according to the need, but it's negotiating what would be reasonable. It's an advantage. Yes, it helps you re-energize. It's exciting and it's good. That's great. But the problem is if it's too much, you're missing out on family time, household chores, all those sorts of things. And that's going to cause a lot of resentment from family. I remember the child of an autistic father who did a lot of gaming at home. And his daughter said, I think my dad loves his games more than he loves me.
Okay. All right. Man, there's so many to choose from.
Yes. Happy to suggest more.
I'll just do one. Oh, there's actually one for Tony there. Can I read it out for you, Tony?
Yeah, do. I can't see it.
Yep. It's what advice would you give on time spent on gaming for autistic teens who use it as a regulating tool at the end of the
That's just the
day?
question I had asked.
Oh,
I'm
that's
sorry to
what we've
say.
just done.
We'll be doubling up if we go with that one.
Sorry, I was
Um,
looking for my other question before that. My
Completely
apologies. All
fine.
right, go for it, Yomi. I'm clearly not the
Okay.
curator.
I've one that might be a little. Again, they're all very complicated questions. They're fantastic questions. One coming in from Robin. If an autistic individual isn't getting the typical dopamine rewards from everyday activities, like at school, which many neurotypical teenagers are also still learning to navigate, and they struggle to understand the bigger picture and future benefits, then some of these conversations can feel surface level or disconnected. Can some of these conversations feel surface level or disconnected from their experience
I'm
personally?
a little bit unsure quite what the question is focusing on.
So I think what we're trying to talk about, and correct me absolutely, Robin, if I get it wrong, is when we're talking about, have a reply? No. An autistic individual that might be, when we're having conversations around why we might be gaming and potentially the pitfalls and the benefits, and we're trying to navigate that, interaction
Mm.
with gaming and doing it healthily, do we feel sometimes that understanding the bigger picture or the future benefits of slowing down gaming or gaming less in the immediate short term, why is that beneficial long term? When we disconnect from that, is there a level of in neurodivergence we're not finding
Okay, I think one
reasons
of the
why?
problems is parents see the big picture. They see the long-term future and they're worried because it's quite appropriate for them. Their role is to prepare their children for life. And the child really thinks, well, that's something about 10 years' time. That's half my life. And that's so far away. I'm not really concerned about it. So I think often the teenager in particular is living almost from day to day, not really seeing the longer term effects that are going to occur. Sometimes it means having a conversation with that person about what are your long-term goals, etc., and how can you achieve those, but not to be distracted, shall we say, too much by the gaming, because there's lots of other things that you need to do to get the achievement. Because if you want to leave home, you want to have a good job, you want a good relationship, there are certain things that you need to practice. And when you're on Discord or anything like that, that's not a good way of learning about conflict resolution, relationships, and all sorts of things, because you're not directly relating to face to a person at that time. So there are certain things in your long-term future you will need, but these are some things that you need to start thinking of now in small steps as much as you can.
In mentoring, we used to call it we're doing our best to try and facilitate an epiphany. I think we talked about that last time, Tony. Because it has to be their idea, right? We have to be able to show them the way and where the benefits are and find points where we agree and then challenge beliefs that we disagree with. And one of the ways that we look at it, there are a lot of games that use things called skill trees in the game. And so that's one of the ways that you can develop a character and customize it. So maybe you want it to be stronger or faster or stealthier or smarter. And you might not be able to level up the entire tree in a game. So you have to choose a pathway. It's part of the autonomy drivers. And so one of the things that we're always experimenting with new stuff, is the real life skill tree. So it's like gamifying goal setting. So it might be, specifically setting goals to and potentially even rewarding effort that's been put in outside of gaming, effort in real life. So it might be getting out there and getting a bit more exercise. It might be working towards engaging with people in real life, going camping with the family, getting that sense of achievement of leveling up your skill tree in life is really about filling your competence, autonomy, and relatedness buckets in real life. But for us, it all starts with that realization of what are you actually seeking, right? So if you're playing games, you're like, oh, they're games, they're fun. And then we give them the language to understand, well, I'm seeking an extrinsic reward in Roblox, or I'm seeking connection, I'm seeking competence, let's say. We want to help them understand through that educational process that if they're seeking it, the best way to do it is going to be a combination of maybe a bit in game, but mostly, in real life. And we try to work through that process. Okay.
Yeah, good.
Definitely.
It's moderation, balance. Yeah,
As usual,
yeah.
but it's getting to that understanding is the tricky part, isn't it?
But I like your suggestion of almost a road to Damascus epiphany. It's got to come from within, and it's got to be their decision. They're not going to do it out of obedience. They're going to do it because they recognize the value of it, and that means it's going to be far more successful.
Yes, that's definitely how we look at it. Um, we've definitely gone over, which is totally fine. Let's see if we can squeeze in, I don't know, two or three more questions. What do you guys think?
Okay, obviously, time-wise for me is important. I'm
Okay.
having to get up at 3:30 in the morning.
Oh, so how about
Fair
one
enough.
more question?
Can we get away with one more?
Yep.
Is that gonna
Okay.
work? All right, let's do it.
An anonymous person has asked, and I think it relates to PDA, as you were talking about earlier, Tony. But what does pathological demand avoidance look like in relation to autistic teens that are gaming?
I think the power of it is that I'm in charge of what I do. No, nobody's the boss of me. And that's what the person is trying to achieve, that degree of autonomy. Um, it also means that when parents start to make suggestions, then there can be almost an automatic response of negativity. And that can be very difficult for parents because the person really will not take advice, whoever it's from, and they have to learn from their own mistakes. And that is most unfortunate. Usually, the way is somebody else makes a mistake, you go, oh, I will learn from that. But often with PDA and autism, is the person has to learn from their own experiences. And sometimes those are bitter experiences. And parents know that this is going to be a disaster, but there's nothing they can do sometimes to stop it. And that's one of the challenges.
Well, that's very true. It's very difficult to navigate. We've had lots of clients come through with PDA, and it's it's one of those situations where the authenticity does definitely
Mm,
help. When they get to be engaging in something they want to be engaged in, then we can sort of help navigate through that process. And we do our best to help them see again why they might make that decision. But it's
mm.
definitely sometimes a longer road than somebody without PDA, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. It's a real challenge in many ways, especially for parents who can see what's occurring, but they're not. It's the curse, should we say, the gift of prophecy, but the curse of not being believed.
Yep,
Definitely.
definitely. All right, I'll just sum up a little bit with sort of what we do at GameAware, just very, very briefly. And uh, is this frozen? I think it's frozen. There we go. Um, so essentially, our whole model is gamers helping gamers, and we want to help build that healthy relationship with gaming. We've got a few different types of supports. If it's something you'd be interested in exploring, there's a link I'll show you in a moment that I'll give you a free discovery call and then see if it's a fit for you. But we do one-on-one mentoring and group support, and that is subclinical. It's um how do I put it? Subclinical. It's almost like Big Brother, Big Sister situation. We're trying to mentor them and guide them through what we call a program of support. And then we also have psychology, occupational therapy, and speech therapy available for those um, other scenarios that we find go with problematic gaming. Sorry, this is really going quite slow on my end. Is it slow for you guys too? Yes,
We've got a blank white screen.
it is having a problem. Let's try this another way. We might have made the Prezi gods angry. So essentially, with the services that we offer, if you go to the GameAware homepage, which is gameaware.com.au, there's actually a little under the parents tab. There's actually a little 3 tips for parents. It's a little PDF that you can get access to that gives you like 3 things that you can try today to try and help, navigate that situation. One of the questions that we got earlier was around like, I'm not tech savvy and, I'm not sure how to approach this situation. One of the tips on the guide is quite literally explaining how to sit down, have them coach you through what they're doing, pay really close attention to the information on the screen, ask them, especially when you have this knowledge, this vocabulary of competence, autonomy, and relatedness, try to figure out what do they prioritize when they play. So in the polls, you gave us maybe what you thought it might be, but it's important to sort of explore that. And if you take an interest, that is already a massive step forwards in changing the dynamic of that conversation. So if anybody's interested in a free discovery call, right next to that is the book a chat with us button. And we'd be happy to take your calls and see if there's any value that we can provide you. But I really want to say thank you for coming. Tony, thank you for joining us tonight. It's an honor. We really appreciate your valuable time. And thank you, Yome, for helping navigate some questions and correcting me when I go through the same question twice. Whoops.
Happens to the best of
If
us.
I'd have answered it again, I wonder if I'd have given exactly the same answer.
Maybe we should have.
But
Very good.
but yeah, Tony, thank you again. And for all the parents who are here and the ones who registered and who aren't here, if I did it correctly, Zoom will give you a link to this Q&A probably in a day's time in the follow-up email. So
Yeah,
good luck,
in 24
everybody.
hours, there should be one sent out. I did double check that before.
Oh,
So anyone
fantastic.
that's not here, thank you for listening in.
Okay,
Brilliant.
thanks, guys, and safe gaming.
All right, you guys, everybody have a great night.
Thank you.
Take care.